Hey, Pink Buddha here, and welcome to another episode of Force Fridays. If you've missed the other ones in the series, click up here to get caught up. Today, we're going to dive into macros. It's crazy how huge this is. I actually think it's almost overkill, but it's actually kind of nice to see Akai go in this direction and make something that's just so much more than you need. You can scale back versus something that is always lacking. I mean, you're never going to really tap into the full control of it, and that's okay. Anyways, without further ado, let's dive in. So yesterday I posted this video up here doing a performance with the Force and my vintage Rhodes and my Moog Sub 37, which I love that combination together. It's so sweet. And I'm going to use that session to explain a little bit about what I did with the macros. I think that's a good reference for taking some baby steps into macros. And I also really hate instructional videos that just go through and talk about features. And so in these videos, I want to demonstrate something in the context of how I would actually use it, not just being like, here's what this button does and here's what this button does, but like, here's how I use it to make music. So I went ahead and pulled up this session so I could give you a better idea of what I was actually doing on it. On the master track, I had the XY filter, which was pretty straightforward. I was just doing a standard beat repeat with a low pass filter so that when the drums would play or anything else going into it, I could kind of do that beat repeat type sound. The next thing I put on there was just one of the air filters. I really like that one because you can add a little bit of drive and distortion to it. I just like that one the best. And finally, I had a kill EQ, so I could touch this pad here, set up to be momentary, and cut out the low end on that particular track. So let me show you how that works. If I go to the macros, what I did was assigned to this knob right here to be able to affect the cutoff filter. And let me go ahead and play this so you can see how that sounds. So again, this knob here is adjusting the cutoff or the filter, and I have that on the master track. So the drums, my Moog that was running through here, and this Rhodes sound are all going to be affected at the same time. I love doing that because you can then glue your whole piece together. What I did was just click the plus button here, and I had to go to the master track to outputs 1 and 2. I had to find the insert or the filter cutoff, the one that I had, and then I wanted to do the cutoff frequency. You can also use this handy learn feature, which is an easy way of jumping to that without having to go through all these menus, which can be kind of a pain. So if I was setting this up from scratch, I would click on a new knob, which I did for this knob right here, click on learn, then go to find the track that I want to, master track, go to the filter here, and then click on the cutoff frequency, slightly change it first. You can't just click on it. You need to turn the knob so something changes, and then you can go back into macros and it has found that particular knob. So that's a really easy way of doing it. You got to make sure that you turn off this learn knob, otherwise it'll keep trying to learn things, and that's something that I've made a mistake with doing before. Now that I have this here, you can pull up these parameters down below, and this is where it allows you to change certain things. Let's go through these for a second. So this allows you to adjust the range for the knob. If you just leave it in default, it's going to be all the way, at least from 0 to 100, so to speak. And in the case of the filter, that's all the way down to 55 hertz to 20,000 hertz. So all the way to the left is going to be, well, I mean, it's a continuous dial, but if you just turn it as far as you can to the left until the number stops, it's going to go all the way down to 55. I turn it until it stops going to the right, it's going to go all the way up to 20,000 kilohertz. If I want that range to be smaller so that there's more nuance, let's say I could go from 20,000 hertz but only down to, let's say, 6K. So when I turn this knob, even when I go all the way to the left, it's only going to go down as far as 6.1K. So that's pretty subtle. It's really not doing very much with the filter. I don't usually want mine to go that limited. I'm going to go as far as I can up and down, but that's how you control those parameters. Now you might sometimes want it to be in reverse order. So by flipping it, it means now that when I turn it to the left, that's going to be 100, and turning to the right takes it down to whatever the 0 ends up being. Now if you notice here that when I turn these knobs, they are going opposite of each other because I've set them both up to control the filter, but I've flipped the polarity on them. The numbers are the same, but the direction of the knobs is different. So that's what the flipping the parameter does. Toggle is a really significant feature here because what it allows you to do is use the touch of the button here to be able to change something. So if I want to toggle something on and off, I can, just by clicking the button, take it from maximum to minimum. I've set this to toggle so that when I touch it, it goes all the way up or all the way off. And that's a really nice feature to be able to flip that on and off. Now, when you do that, it disables the turning of the knob. It just turns it into something that you touch. So this might be helpful if you set up two knobs. Let's say I wanted to be able to flip the frequency off entirely, the cutoff, so it just completely stops. Let's listen to how it sounds. So the filter just went all the way off. Whereas this one is going to be more subtle. The right-hand one would be toggling it on and off. So you could set up two knobs that would be affecting the same effect, but just in different ways. Now, if I was going to do this, I would probably just take the filter and not do all the way off by momentary. I probably want it to be like just kind of a lower amount that I could pop on and off. Maybe like to 828 or something. Let's hear that sounds. Maybe a little lower. Anyways, you'd program that to taste. The other thing I would definitely recommend that you get into is this momentary knob. Momentary just means that whenever you change a knob and then you let go, it's going to pop back to some state that wherever you set it. And here's the key thing. When you push the momentary knob, wherever this dial's at and wherever parameter it's on, that's the point that it's going to pop back to. So if you wanted the filter to be all the way up, whenever I let go, you're going to need to make sure that's all the way up first before clicking on momentary. So now when I play this, I'll show you again how that sounds. Turn down the filter, and as soon as I let go, it's going to pop back to wherever I set the momentary to. If you want that to be not at 100% or all the way up in the filter in this case, I would need to put it to about like 2K, then hit momentary, and that's where it's going to stay when I let go. So if I turn it down, it's going to pop back to 2K. I can turn it up, it's going to pop back to 2K. You definitely want to be thoughtful about where you put that momentary. With the filter, if I'm going to use momentary, I want it to be all the way up. Something else like a delay or other things like that, you might want to have at a certain level already. Let's say you want to put a delay on there and then set the momentary for like a little bit of delay, so you can turn it up, and then when you let go, it's going to pop back down to the level, but it's not popping off, it's just popping at a lower level than you might have wanted before. I'm going to take off momentary because I don't want that on here for now. Let's talk about the other effect that I have on here. Let's go back to the master track, which is this kill EQ, and that allows me to be able to just turn off the low end. I can set it to where I want it to be. It's kind of the same thing as a filter. Could have just done a high pass filter, set it at a certain point that I turn on and off. This just allows me to put one effect on there and then have several knobs controlling it. So I have also the high end that I can kill on here, which essentially does the same thing as a low pass or high pass filter, but you'd have to have two different effects, and that you only have 4 slots. And on the master track, I think you really got to have that last one be the maximizer, So you're limiting the sound coming out of the 4 so you're not blowing speakers or something like that. So you got really just like 3 spots on the master. And this kill EQ allows you to be able to put several different controls on here while you're only using up 1 slot. So when I set that up in the macro, I set that up here on these 2 knobs so that when I touch this, if you notice it's the through, I had to go in here and find which one I wanted for the low, and it's set to toggle. So when I touch this, it just turns it all the way on or off. And on this particular effect, it's not like the other filter, which you can have be graduated. It's just like on or off. That's what you got. So when I play this one, I just have to touch the knob. And that's a really nice feature in this new update. I love it. It's awesome. So in that song also, I set up the XY track and I was just doing a standard beat repeat. All right, I think that's a good place to stop so you're not too overloaded with information. Next week, I'm going to take things a step further and show you how to set up multiple parameters on the same knob. So stay tuned for that.